They're truly unhinged in a way we've never seen. I don't think Trump has to do much heavy lifting, frankly. Let them do all the talking.
Kyle, should moderate Democrats worry about this far left push?
No, I think that the far left is actually the way for Democrats to win, believe it or not. So when you look at the polls and you look at all the substantive policy issues, the American people overwhelmingly support Medicare for all, for example. They overwhelmingly support free college. They overwhelmingly want to end the wars. So when you go issue for issue, the American people are actually with the far left. And in fact, President Trump, when he ran in 2016, stole some of those issues. He ran against the wars. He ran against the trade deals.
In today's video, we're looking at a video from 6 years ago where Kyle Kulinski absolutely destroys a Fox News host in a heated debate about the left. The Fox host tries the usual fear-mongering about socialism taking over the Democratic Party, but Kyle comes armed with facts, polling, and a grounded understanding of where the country is actually headed. He breaks down why the rise of progressive ideas like Medicare for all, tuition-free college, and higher wages isn't some fringe movement, but a reflection of what voters actually want. So let's dive in and watch how Kyle Kulinski shuts down this Fox News host in this heated debate.
And
So
well,
if anything,
and Kyle, you might have a point. He also said he wasn't going to touch any of the entitlements, Social Security or Medicare. You make a good point in terms of where the Democratic Party is headed. There's a lot of Democratic socialists beginning in New York that have started to knock folks off, longtime Democrats. Tuesday's primary in Missouri, Cori Bush, Democratic socialist, taking on Lacey Clay, longtime Democratic congressman. There comes a question, though, in terms of how palatable across the board these folks are, not just in primaries. Interview with Cori Bush from about 2 weeks ago, and then we'll get your guys' reaction. Roll it. The wealthy should pay their fair share.
Yes, wealthy should pay their fair share.
What is a fair share? What percentage?
So you're saying that you're saying that they're paying their fair share is what you're saying?
No, I'm asking what percentage is a fair share?
Their fair share, the same, if a third of my money is going to taxes, then I think a third of their money should be going to taxes.
It does.
Well, it does.
I'm trying to understand because you realize the effective tax rate on the poor is less than it is on the rich, right?
Okay, so first of all, I'm not the poor. I'm very close to that line, but I'm not the poor.
Okay, so the effective tax rate on the middle class is less than it is on the rich, correct? What fair share would you like to change the tax rate to on the wealthiest, what percentage of Americans, so it's a fair share?
So let's say the wealthy 1% could pay, let's say if they paid, let's just give them 45%.
Kyle, is that the future of the Democratic Party?
I hope it's the future of the Democratic Party. Jeff Bezos has over $100 billion at the same time that we have 60,000 homeless veterans in this country and 400,000 homeless Americans. And the American people, again, to go to the polls, overwhelmingly want to raise taxes on the rich, overwhelmingly want to raise taxes on Wall Street and corporations. I'm talking about 58% of Americans. So if your strategy is to defend the rich, by all means, go right ahead.
Now, Fox tried to spin the clip as proof that the progressive left is out of its depth, but Kyle came in with the facts, clarity, and moral grounding. Kyle pushed back hard on the idea that the left is too extreme, pointing out that so-called far-left policies are actually mainstream with American voters. Medicare for all, supported by 60 to 70% of Americans, depending on the poll. Tuition-free college, roughly 63% support that too. Raising taxes on the wealthiest 1%, nearly 60% of voters are on board, including many independents. So the idea that these policies are somehow radical just doesn't hold up under scrutiny. What's actually radical is letting billionaires like Jeff Bezos amass over $100 billion in wealth while 60,000 veterans are sleeping on the street and 400,000 Americans are homeless. That's what Kyle drove home, and it resonated. He also called out how Trump in 2016 campaigned on some of these same populist positions, opposing trade deals, defending Social Security before promptly flipping once in office. So if anything, it's the progressive wing that's stayed consistent with working class interests. Cori Bush may not have rattled off tax brackets like an economist, but her values were clear. She believes that ultra-wealthy should not hoard while millions suffer, and that message lands with the American people.
Chris, and I'm guessing you just really hope that Cori Bush is the future of the Democratic Party.
Oh, these mathematicians are brilliant. This Alicia Ocasio-Cortez before her, these are wonderful spokespeople. As I said in the open, let them keep talking. By the way, it's not like we're talking math and economics with them most of the time, although when they do, that's pretty golden. We're still talking about radical fringe stuff. Abolishing ICE, abolishing law enforcement. You know,
abolishing law enforcement. Why are you making things up? That's made up. You just made that up. Who says abolish law enforcement? Yes, you did.
Well,
you just made that up. Who said abolish law enforcement? Nobody. You did.
Excuse me. Is ICE not law enforcement?
Customs and Border Protection already protects the border. ICE was created in 2003, and by the way, there are allegations of them literally doing slavery.
Kyle, proven in the court of law. Fellas, one second. And Kyle, you made a point about polling. Ending ICE or abolishing ICE does not play well in polls in the heartland. That is not a popular thing in Michigan, in Ohio, and in Missouri.
That's correct, but that's because we need to make the argument. And for example, like I just referenced before I was being talked over, there are allegations of literal slavery happening at private prisons run by ICE. You're laughing. It was in the Washington Post. It's been proven. It was proven in a court of law.
Okay.
A court of law proved that there's merit.
I'm still trying to figure out how we got from there to here. We will dissect that in the post-mortem. Meantime, fellas, we got to run. It was great having you both on here.
Wow.
Look it up. I'm correct.
Great
Factually
conversation.
Correct.
All right, Chris, Kyle, thank you. Appreciate it, fellas.
Right out of the gate, Chris sarcastically mocked Cori Bush and AOC, painting them as somehow unserious or fringe. But when Kyle challenged the claims, like the idea that progressives want to abolish all law enforcement, Chris had nothing. He tried to twist abolish ICE into abolish all police, which is just dishonest. ICE was only formed in 2003 and has a long track record of human rights violations, including, as Kyle pointed out, allegations of forced labor in private detention centers. That's not a fringe talking point, that's fact, backed by credible reporting and even legal rulings. When Fox tried to claim that polling shows abolish ICE doesn't play in the heartland, Kyle didn't deny it. Instead, he said something more honest, that the left needs to make the argument, not run from it. That's the key difference here. Kyle's not hiding behind buzzwords. He's pointing out to real injustice and calling for structural reform. And the irony? These same MAGA type claim to hate government overreach and surveillance, but somehow defend ICE, the very agency accused of both. That contradiction was never addressed because it can't be.
Yeah, so like I said, I had more fun this time around than last time around. There were fireworks, but I actually enjoyed the fireworks. It makes you feel like alive and focused and sharp and ready to respond. So let's break this down. The elephant in the room is obviously the Cori Bush clip. So when they played that clip, let me be clear up front. Yeah, it's obvious that she fumbled that question. Like, it's not... The point is so obvious that I didn't even feel the need to give a nod to that point, because the clip speaks for itself. And honestly, I think if you talk to Cori Bush, in a moment of sheer honesty, she'll tell you, yeah, I fumbled that question. I didn't answer that question well. Now, there perhaps may have been a little bit of misleading Fox News editing in there. There was a cut at a peculiar point. I don't know if you guys caught that, but if you go back and check it out, you can see it. And I don't want to throw Cori Bush under the bus overall, because I think the point to stress was the point that I did stress there, which is her overarching point is undeniably true. See, if they came back from that clip and asked me about it, and my immediate reaction was, yeah, you're right, she fumbled that question. Now, what I would be saying is, stylistically, she fumbled it, but the main point is, substantively, she's actually correct. But if they come back from that clip and I say, yeah, she fumbled that question, that's it. Everybody in the Fox News audience shuts their brain off and goes, aha, see? So Cori Bush is a bad candidate. Her message is obviously wrong. In other words, there's a lot that goes hand in hand with making that point up front. And it's actually a brilliant propaganda trick, a clever propaganda trick, the way that they presented that. Because it's not like they steel man their opponent's argument. It's not like they play a clip of Noam Chomsky dissecting why a progressive tax system is obviously superior and better for the people compared to a flat tax or any other kind of tax system. So they don't lead with a strong argument from the other side. They lead with something that's obviously comical and something that's supposed to portray the entire left-wing position as goofy and silly and stupid. So I was as I'm watching that Cori Bush clip, I'm at a crossroads in my mind. I go, okay, there's many ways I can respond to this. What's the best way to respond to this? And the first thing that came across my mind was, of course, to just admit up front, like, yeah, she answered that question poorly. That's a given. But I didn't want to say that because by the end of the clip, she actually gave a reasonable answer. They were like, hey, what should the tax rate be on the top 1%? She goes, I don't know, 45%. If the clip was shown and it was just that, and it wasn't all the pauses and the awkward thinking in between, that would be a perfectly reasonable answer. I mean, the top tax rate on the rich is 35% right now. It was 39% under Obama. It was 40% under Bill Clinton. 45% honestly just goes back to what it was through most of the golden age of economic expansion in the U.S. Under Eisenhower, the top tax rate was 91%. Now, that was just the nominal rate. That wasn't the effective rate. The effective rate was actually about 45%. That was the actual amount. And again, we're talking marginal rates here, not overall rates. That's another important point. But I was at a crossroads. I had to think, okay, what's the best way to respond to this? And again, her fumbling that question was so fucking obvious, I didn't even feel the need to be like, ho, you guys got her, because that's so like, it's like, duh, she didn't answer that question well. Me, being a policy guy, being a substance guy, what did I do? I decided, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to go over the top on them. And I'm going to go over the top on them for a very simple reason. The overarching point is correct.
Kyle's right. Bush's answer, maybe 45% for the top 1% tax rate, isn't radical at all. Historically, it's actually moderate. Under Eisenhower, the top marginal tax rate was 91% and the effective rate was about 45%. As Kyle noted, the US thrived under that system. Even Reagan had higher top rates than what we have today. So to pretend Bush's point is extreme is just bad faith spin. Kyle also exposed a tactic Fox uses constantly: cherry-pick the weakest clip, strip it out of context, and act like that is the left's entire argument. Noam Chomsky never gets the clip treatment. Bernie Sanders explaining the benefits of universal healthcare never gets aired. It's always the moment someone pauses awkwardly or searches for a word. That's how they shape narrative, not how they engage in honest debate. Kyle navigated that minefield perfectly by leaning into policy. He didn't take the bait, and instead he reminded everyone that the real reason for tax reform is the grotesque inequality we live in. Record CEO pay, stock buybacks, and billionaires paying effective tax rates lower than nurses. That's what matters, not whether a congresswoman stumbled over a number for 5 seconds. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.